AITA for declining to celebrate Christmas with my boyfriend's family and not inviting him to my family's celebration. AU for declining to celebrate Christmas with my boyfriend's family and not inviting him to my family's celebration. Ooh. I'm for context, I am from the United States and currently a second-year university student in the UK. My boyfriend from 23 is British, recently finished his master's and is now working. We've been dating for 10 months, and he's my first boyfriend. He's been nothing but understanding, kind, and supportive throughout our relationship. We've met his parents and siblings twice, and both times were wonderful. His mom even told him she thinks I'm the one. Um, in late November, he asked if I'd like to spend Christmas with his family. He said everyone would love to have me there, and I thought it was sweet, but I declined. I had been feeling homesick and wanted to spend Christmas, a holiday that means a lot to me, with my family in South Dakota. When I told him, he seemed aloof for a few days. I went to his flat later to reassure him that I love to visit his family another time, but for me, Christmas is a family holiday. I now realize how that could have sounded dismissive. He looked hurt and asked, "Do you still love me? And aren't I your family?" I reassured him that I do love him, and things seemed fine after that. About a week later, he surprised me by showing me a flight he'd booked to South Dakota for Christmas. Flights to South Dakota are expensive, especially internationally, and while the gesture was touching, I thought it was impulsive and unwise. I told him it wasn't a good idea. For the first time, he got really upset, accusing me of not caring about him, not being serious about us, and thinking only of myself, all of which are untrue. Um, I think I love him and value our relationship deeply. Knowing he was speaking out of hurt, I asked him to take a walk to cool off. Um, when he returned, I explained that he means everything to me, but I wasn't ready for him to meet my family. To be honest, I'm nervous about how my family would react. I'm white, he's Arab, and my family in rural South Dakota is not exposed to diversity. They've made ignorant, racist comments in the past. While they'd likely be polite to his face, I fear they might say something offensive or um, jokingly inappropriate. They also assume Arab equals Muslim, even though he's Christian. This ignorance embarrasses me, and I don't want to put him in a situation where he might be hurt. I didn't tell him any of this, though. Instead, I said I felt it was too soon to bring someone home, as in my family. That's often a precursor to engagement, which is true. He asked if he wasn't good enough, and I reassured him that he's perfect. And you're going to prove me wrong? As in my successful misery. He then mentioned that the tickets were non-refundable. I started crying, apologizing for wasting his money and saying how much I wanted him there, just not right now. He asked me to leave and said he needed space. I flew back home nearly a week ago, and since then, we've only had brief phone conversations. He still texts me, "I love you," and "good night." But he's still really ill in the silo, and I feel refreshing. He then mentioned that the tickets were not refundable and said he'd be leaving for Italy later. He did say, "So, AITA, my boyfriend and I have been dating for 10 months now. He's from the UK, where I study at university, and I am currently back in the USA for winter break. I made a horrible mistake about how I handled his invitation to Christmas and refusing to let him come to mine." In another Reddit post of mine. Yesterday, I decided to call him and try to fix things. Since what I did was so wrong, I explained my family's issues with racism. He's Jordanian and I'm white, and how I was wanting to protect him and trying to handle my family's problems before he gets introduced. I I acknowledged that I should have told him and handled it poorly, but would be honest with him from now on. I also told him that I had a conversation with my family about my relationship and told them any racist behavior from their end would be completely unacceptable. Um, Initially, he was understanding of my situation. He said my family didn't change the way he felt or viewed me. He was glad I was honest, and he apologized for his reactions earlier. After a while, he said that after what happened, we should lay some ground rules for each person in our relationship. I thought it was going to be things like honesty, trust, consideration, etc. Instead, he literally gave me things I must do in order for this relationship to be successful. Firstly, he told me I couldn't make decisions about things without him first. He basically said that relationships require sacrifice and compromise, and with big things such as Christmas, vacations, etc., I would need him to be okay with me doing these things. He said it was childish of me to be in the habit of doing whatever I want. Secondly, he told me I should distance myself from my family. I actually understand his reasoning here, considering how some of them are racist and um, not great people. I told him it was complicated because I still loved them despite this, which might make me just as bad, not sure. I can still see where he was coming from. So I told him that if they ever made a racist comment about anyone in front of me, I would try to educate. And if that didn't work, I would distance myself. He then said I was playing middleman and that was unfair to him. Um, he said in a few years when we get married, I would have to make the choice. He finally told me he wants my location on at all times and wants me to go low contact with my male friends, most of which are gay, anyways. I told him a lot of these rules seemed over the top, and in the most patronizing tone, he said, "You've never been in a relationship before, and I'm older than you, so you should listen." The moment he said that, I thought it didn't sound like him at all. Most of the time, he is the most easygoing and relaxed person, so I couldn't believe it. I told him I didn't appreciate being talked to like a child, and if he wanted to be someone's father, then he should look for another person. Um, he said that while he still forgave me for what I did earlier, my behavior was a testament to how immature I am. He then said we would continue this conversation another time and hung up before we could even say goodbye. I feel like I partially caused this shift in his behavior by inadvertently making him insecure because of my refusal to let him come. Before this, he was honestly the last person I would ever consider getting insecure. Um, he is very good looking, has a good career, and has always been confident. So I would never think he would act this way. I feel like I probably caused the shift in his behavior by inadvertently causing him to keep him from being in control so things can go back to the way they were, or AITA for declining to follow the rules and should I just follow them? Hey everyone, I wanted to update on my previous two posts. I received great advice from a lot of people and it immensely helped me trying to evaluate our relationship. Um, I texted my friends about the situation, and they also agreed he sounded overbearing. About an hour ago, I ended things for good. I texted him yesterday afternoon that I thought we should have a serious discussion about our relationship. He said we should wait until we had both cooled off from our conversations earlier, so I suggested tomorrow. He sent me his usual good night and I love you texts, which kind of broke me. His horrible behavior didn't erase 10 months of love that I feel for him. And it almost felt like betraying him, saying the same things back when I knew what I was going to do in the morning. But here's kind of a summarized version of the call. It was over an hour, so I condensed it as much as I could. And I tried to write it as quickly as the call ended so I wouldn't forget. Anyways, and I called him. He seemed very normal and calm. We talked for 10 minutes just about how things were going and stuff. Then I basically told him that I didn't want to do this, but I thought it would be best if we broke up. I said that we probably expected different things from our partners and I couldn't do what he wanted from me. After I said that, he sat in silence for like a minute. I thought the call had dropped, but then he said he was processing what I said. He asked me if this was revenge for what he said 2 days ago. And I said, no, just a realization of incompatibility. He then said he wasn't going to change his mind on his boundaries. That me giving him an ultimatum was manipulative. And he told him that this wasn't an ultimatum, it was going to happen. He then kept repeating what the fuck and then told me I didn't mean it. He asked me if I loved him still, and I said yes. And then he said, he knows I'll come back. I said this was it. He said something about how we need each other and went on a rant. Um, but I don't remember that much of it because I was crying at that point. I cut him off at the end and just said goodbye. He said he would never forgive me and I would never see him again since he was that awful, and then hung up. I immediately blocked his number, WhatsApp, Snapchat, and Insta. I do not think he will have another way of contacting me. I do not think he will seek me out or anything, so I'm not too worried about that. My university accommodation also has front desk security, and you can't get in without a key card. Thanks again, everyone. Edit. His mom just texted me saying she was sad things ended the way they did, but she wishes me all the best, minor update, one of his friends tried adding me on Snapchat for some reason. Don't know if it's him using his friend's account, his friend wants to know what happened, or a coincidence. He added me right when this unfolded.